We're going to bring y'all into our huddle.
Today is Tuesday, August 26, 2014, and you are in the Warriors Huddle with me, Bram, and with me as always, my boy and producer, Scott.
Scott here.
And joining us for the first time in Huddle history, and I'm actually pretty fired up to announce it, rapper, actor, comedian, and perhaps most importantly for today's purposes, a huge Warrior fan, Simon Dirt Nasty Rex. What's going on, Simon?
That's right. That's right. Maybe the biggest Warriors fan, in Southern California. Look, I've been a Warriors fan since, let's see, I'm doing the math. I moved to the East Bay in 1988, and that's when I started going to Warriors games. I lived in Alameda. Sorry, I'm in South Central Los Angeles right now.
I won't hold it against you.
If you can hear the crime behind me. So I moved to Alameda in 1988 from San Francisco, and I, at the time, was a big Niners fan, and I don't really remember being into basketball until I moved to the East Bay, and I lived about 5 minutes from the Oakland Coliseum, as Alameda is directly next to, East Oakland. So I stuck with my Niners, and I started going to Warriors games. And, I remember this was the Run TMC era. This was back when I can't remember actually if we had the full Run TMC squad then. This is pre-Latrell Sprewell. So I've been a Warriors fan really since middle school, as long as I can remember. My life is a blur, so that's saying a lot.
I can tell you right now, when you started off by saying I'm the biggest Warrior fan, I started getting hella defensive, and then you limited it to Southern California, so I'll agree, hands down, no problem at all.
Okay,
I was
good.
also a little concerned when you said you lived right by the Collie. I was thinking you did not sound like you were from deep East Oakland, but Alameda, that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, that little body of water separating Oakland and Alameda is a big, gap in culture. But nonetheless, it spills into each other, and there's a lot of, we have so much sports culture in the Bay Area. We have so many teams. It's funny that when you're in the Bay Area, you have A's fans and Giants fans and Niners and Raiders fans. But once you leave the Bay Area, you pretty much root for any, especially living in LA, you just root for any Northern California team. But I still stick with my Niners. And I stick with my A's. I don't know how I became an A's fan, but I was there when the Bash Brothers were around, and I really stuck with my Warriors through thick and thin. I never jumped off the bandwagon. So I have been hurting for so many years. So it finally feels good to have this new exciting era upon us. It's really exciting.
It sure should, man. And I tell you what, let me back us up a little bit, cover some of the non-Warrior related history from you, and then really dig into how big of a Warrior fan you are. First, couple of softball questions. You already said it. Wait, are you from the Bay originally, or you just moved out to the Bay?
No, I was born and raised in San Francisco, and then I moved to Alameda when I was 11 years old. And shortly after, really got into basketball, and then I even played high school basketball. When I finally grew in high school, I played for Alameda High School. And much later, I got to play, when I worked as an MTV VJ, I got to play in the Oakland Coliseum when we hosted the All-Star Game. I want to say around the late 90s, maybe early 2000s. I can't remember when we hosted the All-Star Game, but I got to play in the Coliseum. That was a dream come true. I grew up in the same grade as Jason Kidd and J.R. Ryder in Alameda. So Alameda High was just nothing compared to St. Joseph's High School, which was Division I. So I have deep basketball roots in the Bay Area,
And Isaiah was over at Encinel, right, at that exact same time?
Yeah, that's right. J.R. Ryder, Isaiah, as we know him, Isaiah Ryder, or J.R. as we know him. I'm sorry, the other way around. J.R. He was trouble, and I remember when he, in a lot of ways, on the court and off the court, and Jason Kidd was the goody boy, and look what happened to each of them. They went their separate ways, and one of them is now going to be in the Hall of Fame, and the other one got into a lot of legal trouble.
I am at least 95% positive I saw J.R. Ryder pull up to a gas station in Oakland about 4 years ago. He had a BMW. All the seats were mammogrammed, J.R. and then another R. And the part that makes me say only 95% positive is that he was blazing a gigantic blunt and not giving a single about it. So he's always been one of my favorite guys. You said something actually that really interests me and I wanted to ask you about anyways. How long were you with MTV?
I was at MTV for 2 years, 1996 to 1998.
Okay. How was that? I mean, did you enjoy being with them? Was that a fun job?
Great. It was great. It was great. I was, traveling around the country doing spring break and these, winter snowboarding, like we'd be in Colorado in the winter and Panama City Beach in the summer. I was interviewing, Howard Stern and interviewing Jackie Chan and interviewing, the biggest names in every medium from television to film to sports. You just meet everybody comes through MTV to promote something. So once you're there and you're on TV every single day, that was the dream job, and
Was that during the era when MTV had the Rock and Jock games?
yes, exactly. I played in the Rock and Jock games. I played in Rock and Jock basketball one year, and I won the MVP because I had 27 points. I hit a 25-point bucket. If you remember, they had the bucket that was 30 feet high, and then I made a layup.
Those are the ones that come in like the final 2 minutes, right? They drop that big high-ass basket, and you can only hit it at the end of the game.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. And Lisa Leslie picked me up like I was a little rag doll because I hit it at the halftime buzzer, not to win the game, but I hit a 25-pointer to put us up by 17 points or whatever, and then we ended up winning the game, and I still have my MVP trophy. I won the MVP for the MTV Rock and Jock in 1997, I want to say.
I miss those games, man. And did you also say, so I think I heard you say it, let me make sure, I grew up watching all those MTV beach house parties. Did you work at those as well?
Yeah, I did. I was there in Malibu 1 year and Panama City Beach the other year. So I was out at the beach house all the time, just every day. Nicolas Cage comes through in his, orange Lamborghini, and you're interviewing him, and then you're interviewing the cast of In Living Color. I mean, it was a dream job. It was pretty special. And this is back when MTV was still music television. It wasn't showing all these. I was there actually when they started to show, when reality television was invented, was at MTV at that era. Yep. It was Real World, Road Rules, I want to say.
Yep.
That's when reality television came out, and they stopped showing videos. And I remember saying to them, why aren't we showing videos anymore? What's going on? And they said, because these reality shows we're showing get 10 times the viewers, so we have to show them for, for reasons that make sense to everybody. So that was the beginning of the end of MTV, I think. Then MTV2 came around. It just kind of trickled down from there. But I was there in the golden era,
I don't want you to confirm this, but before we get too far away from the beach houses, I've always imagined that as a bunch of beautiful people hanging out in a house with some of the world's best drugs. Again, don't say yes or no, but I always wanted to be a part of that, man. I can't tell you how jealous I am of what you had going.
Yeah, it's a lot of smoke and mirrors. I'll just say that it's definitely just entertainment, and it's not what you think. And it was fun, but it wasn't like a party like that. It was very controlled chaos for entertainment purposes. And when you have a publicist there with a big actor, it couldn't just be mayhem.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't as crazy as you think, but it was definitely fun.
Well, the beginning of the end for MTV was when they stopped doing the Rock and Jock basketball game, in my opinion.
Well, you know how that happened? You know why that happened? I'll tell you why. Because Dennis Rodman got a reality show on MTV, and the NBA said, we're not letting you do this. If you're going to put the show on the air, you don't get our NBA players anymore for Rock and Jock. And they kept the show on the air, sacrificing Rock and Jock because of the Dennis Rodman show. That's exactly what happened.
Huh. Good knowledge, man.
Yep. Yeah, man, I was there. I was there watching it all happen. I was in the offices when these things were happening. I'd be in the offices on Broadway in New York City, in upstairs, listening to. I could swear, right?
Yeah, no, all good. Yeah, encouraged.
I was in the offices. No, sorry. And it was interesting to see how it all worked, and I learned a lot, and that thrust me into auditioning for TV and film, and now I'm here in LA doing acting and music, which we can get into later.
Yeah.
I'm really more interested in talking about our Warriors because I'm so excited I'm tired of talking about myself, but we can. Let's talk about Steph Curry's pass to Harden the other night.
Exactly right. I tell you what, let's transition first into you being a fan. You already mentioned you were there for the dark years. Every time I talk to a new Warrior fan, I try to work that in. By the way, I rooted for them when there's nobody there. Do you do that same kind of crap, or are you not as vain as I am?
There's something about sticking with your team when they're bad that adds character, and I love I love people talking shit about my Warriors, and then finally now it's so much sweeter. And look, we didn't even get out of the first round of the playoffs yet. I still feel victory for some reason. I still feel like we have the most exciting team to watch, arguably. There's something special happening, and it's exciting, and it all starts with Steph Curry, and it's magical to watch.
I completely agree. I can tell you want to talk about current Warrior stuff, so this will be my last past Warrior question, twofold. One, who's your least favorite Warrior of all time? Two, who's your most hated opponent?
Oh, that's a good question. My least favorite Warrior of all time. I mean, I guess it's not his fault, but and this is more recent. Biedrins, it was nice to see him go because we were paying him so much money to miss free throws, and it was just hard to watch. And, getting rid of him, and RJ, Richard Jefferson, was actually a friend of mine. I made friends with him. He's a great dude, but I was really happy that we got Icky and got rid of them. Whatever happened, that was a big shift for us when that off season when we got Jerry West in there, and all of a sudden things started changing for the better. That was a really big turn too. And so I'm going to say right now, I'm just going to say Biedrins, just because of what we were paying him and how little he contributed as a big man.
And how quickly he turned absolutely awful out of nowhere. Mine was Mookie Blaylock, because we signed that bastard to be a leader, and he refused to actually show up to be a captain in practice in any way. How about most hated opponent? Who's bothered you the most?
Well, I mean, right now it's definitely the Clippers, because I live in L.A. and I got all these bandwagon Clippers fans. So, and there's this rivalry that's going on, and being L.A. Bay Area, the rivalry, I love living here and rooting for my Bay Area teams and arguing with all my local friends down here. All my friends that live in L.A. who make fun of my NorCal teams. Now all of a sudden the Lakers aren't so good and the Warriors are good, and I got something to talk about. So I'm going to go ahead and say the Clippers, just because of this rivalry that's going on right now. It's great. It makes for great. I mean, we took them down to the last 2 minutes of Game 7. We could have and should have won. And we were certainly. Without Bogut, it's an arguable thing because we're in that fast Nelly ball without him. But at the end of the day, if you want to go deeper into the playoffs, you need a big man. And he is that. And he's a factor in the key and in the paint. And he changes people's offense. And, it's interesting, man. It's a tough debate. I argue with my boy McGinnis about this a lot, whether that Nelly ball is the way to go or do we slow it down with Bogut. I think it's a combination personally.
Right.
But, I'm not. My basketball IQ isn't that high, but I'm savvy enough.
Were you disappointed to see Mark Jackson go? I mean, if you like the way that they went last year,
I got mixed feelings about it. I feel like we found out later on what really was going on internally with Mark Jackson. I feel like he came along and did something really great for our team. I'm a little nervous about Kerr in that he's never coached a game, and I don't know if he has that type A dominant personality. Yeah, he was a great player. It's interesting. This is playing out like a real-life soap opera, and it's really interesting to watch.
I tell you what, let's stop looking past. Let's look into the present, and here's what I want to do. It's a brand-new type of segment. I want to start it off with you. What I'll do is play some recent interview clips from various Warriors. Once we've all had a chance to take a look at them, listen to them, think about them, then ask whether or not you agree with what the hell they're saying. Here's our first one, and it's Steph on the Dan Patrick Show. Here's Steph.
Who's a better offensive player, you or LeBron?
Better offensive player, me or LeBron? That's the first time I've ever been asked that question. Me.
Okay.
Got to be, right?
I don't know. I would assume you would think that you're a pure shooter. He can score. You can too. But I think if you know what, the correct answer is probably LeBron is a better scorer, but I think you're the better shooter. So how's that?
I don't know, because he obviously demands a lot of attention on the floor. But I like to say I can distribute, get my teammates involved, and
what about just putting points up?
As well.
What about points? What if I said you go out and score as many as you want in a game, and LeBron goes out? Who scores more?
I like to say my shot would help me in that situation. As a matter of fact, if I get a double team, I can hopefully shoot from farther out than one. We'll see.
I never heard that clip before.
Yeah,
I love it.
I've listened to it a couple times. I love how it starts off as a joke answer until Dan Patrick says, well, can we agree that you're a better shooter, but he's a better scorer? And then Steph gets into it. It's like, well, no, I am better offensively. What do you think, Simon? Is he right?
It's interesting because what's your definition of, I think Dan Patrick kind of said it perfectly. I think LeBron is a better scorer, but Steph Curry is a better shooter, but in combination, a better passer and a playmaker. So, maybe I'm biased, but if you were to, look, I don't know if I'm just saying this, but I think Steph Curry is the future of the NBA. I think I don't know if I would trade him for LeBron James right now.
Whoa. You don't believe that. I'm a huge Warrior fan. I run a damn Warriors podcast with Scott, but no way I wouldn't trade Steph for LeBron. Do you actually believe that? If Miami came right now and said, all right, straight up swap, we will give you LBJ, you wouldn't do it?
You mean Cleveland?
Good call. Exactly right. I was testing you. You passed my test.
Okay, look, I think LeBron's got a few years left in the tank, and that's a matter of whether or not Steph Curry would stay with us for 6 years or not. So I think that's a contractual agreement, based question. If we were to keep, Steph Curry for the next, few years, like Kobe stayed in LA, I would probably, keep Steph because I think he's got more mileage left, But if it's interesting, man. Like this whole Kevin Love thing fell apart. It's so hard to tell unless something happens. I'm still a little shell shocked about the Kevin Love thing. I think personally, huge David Lee fan. It's interesting how this played out. I think Minnesota messed up for themselves. I think they would have got a lot more had they, just taken what was on the table initially. But
sure.
538.com. I don't know if you read them, but they're a website that's all about statistics. They go through, they do tons of analysis. They had a whole article after this quote came out, and they broke it down and said basically, if you use all the advanced different box score metrics we have these days, LeBron was better than Curry in every category except for jump shooting, where Curry made 42% of his threes and James knocked down only 38%, and then passing. So if you use their assist percentage metric or the Sport VU optical tracking passing metric, which I have no idea what that means.
This website sounds crazy boring.
No,
crazy boring. Go ahead.
It's boring, but essentially LeBron wins out at every point.
Okay.
But,
I get it.
But what is interesting is that they have a real plus minus minutes metric, and LeBron James was easily the best offensive player who had the most impact on his team, but Curry had the second most impact. He outpaced the MVP Kevin Durant. So it's not absurd for Curry to make this statement, and he definitely is, based upon the metrics, right up there with LeBron.
Hell no, it's not absurd. I mean, you can't expect this guy to say anything but that. He's an NBA player, a future All-Star. If you ask him if someone's better than him, he has to say no, and I'll go to bat for you.
It's like a rapper. If a rapper doesn't think he's the best, he can't be a good rapper.
Right.
No rapper's going to be like, I'm the third best rapper. It's like, no, if you want to be the best, you have to think you're the best. And I think Steph is playing on another level. He's playing, he's playing out there like a video game in the Matrix. And if he, even for a minute, thinks he's second best, I don't know if you saw that thing too, when LeBron came up to Steph Curry and was like bowing down to him, saying like, "You're the man." Like,
you had to do that to my point guard.
Flip.
Yeah,
he was like that, and I think the whole world's now seeing it, and it's just exciting. And maybe I'm being a little biased, and I'm just excited to have Steph Curry. I mean, sure, of course, LeBron James would be the biggest deal ever for him to come. I'm so happy with our Steph Curry. He's just like, I feel like a proud parent or something. And it's crazy. Let me give you a quick Steph Curry moment. I got to be me and my buddy Mike McGinnis, who's been on the podcast, I believe, right? Been on this before?
He hasn't been on. We interact on Twitter. He's the guy we see at the beginning of every single Warriors game, right? When they show the flash, he's the guy in the hat smiling into the camera before they go.
Yeah. He went to Bishop O'Dowd. He's from Oakland. He and I are both East Bay guys. He and I go to every single game we can possibly go to. And we were even trying to do a show called Road Warriors, where we flew to Chicago out of our own pocket. I spent $650 the day of, because he got 2 courtside seats for the Chicago Warriors. And we're sitting there on the floor. He somehow got them, and we flew there, and I took the subway right to the game. And I sat on the court, and I see Steph Curry and David Lee tapping each other in the knee going, "These motherfuckers are everywhere. Look at, there they are again." They saw us in L.A. the week before. We went up to Oakland the next day. Then we're in Chicago. They're like, "Who are these guys?" And they're laughing at him. And McGinnis has his vintage Sarunas Marciulionis jacket, and I got my vintage Warriors starter from a black starter jacket from the 90s.
Hell yeah.
And we're just there going absolutely crazy on every play. When there's 2 minutes left and it's a blowout, we're going nuts. And they're like, "Who the f*** are these guys?" And they started to like us so much that we started to get in with the friends and family after the games.
Yeah.
So by towards the end of the season, we're hanging out after the game's over with like the friends and family pass, and we're sitting there. David Lee's coming up to us by first name and giving us a pound, going, "Yo, we saw your tweets. You guys are awesome." Da-da-da. And Steph Curry came up to me. Game 1, my friend has right under the basket. He has season tickets at the Clippers games. So as soon as we were playing them in the playoffs, my boy calls me, he goes, "You're coming." Game 1, I'm sitting there underneath the rim, like the second row back, and I just walk up and I stand under the rim as Steph Curry's warming up. And this was out of a Coca-Cola commercial, so Mean Joe Green.
Yeah.
Steph Curry is just kind of looking around and warming up and dribbling, and he starts walking towards me with his head down, dribbling the ball between each leg, and I'm just standing there with my arms crossed. And he comes over to me, I keep thinking, is he walking over to me? What's going on? And he looks up at me, puts his hand out to give me like a 5, and I give him a 5, and he just makes eye contact with me, and I make eye contact with him. We didn't say a word. I just gave him a head nod. He gave me a head nod, and we both knew we were going to win that game, and we won that game 1. And it was the most magical moment. I felt like a little kid. It was crazy. And I'm like, what? I'm 15 years older than this kid. I'm like, I'm 40 years old. Like, I'm getting giddy about this, like, 25-year-old kid who, it's just so crazy, man. It's magical to me. I live in L.A. I'm around actors, celebrities. I don't give a about them. I'm starstruck by Steph Curry. You know what I mean? Like, that to me is magic. I mean, not an actor.
I completely understand that. I would probably come in my pants. Steph couldn't pull me out of a lineup of 1, so I cannot tell you how jealous I am of that story, man.
It was like a dream. It was honestly the coolest thing. And my boy, who has the season ticket, and his friends were behind him going, how the f*** do you know Steph Curry? I'm like, I don't. I just met him a couple times. I don't know what's going on here.
That's a perfect end to the Steph quote. Let me play you another one. This one from Draymond Green about the team's expectations for the year.
Do you think coming into camp, you guys have a legit shot to get to the NBA Finals?
That's definitely the attitude. I think over the last couple of years, we've continued to grow, as a team, and guys are getting better and better. We're starting to understand playing with each other more. As you start keeping core guys together, they start to grow together, So I think that's definitely going to be the expectation for us, and we're going to, look to do whatever we can to make that happen.
So as we just heard, Draymond Green and apparently the Splash Brothers and all the other major portions of this team are coming into this year with championship expectations. I know you're a huge fan, but do you agree with that? Are you expecting championship?
Well, all right, look, let's be realistic right now about the West, okay? We still got to go through teams that are getting good at the same time we are, like Houston. We still got to get through the Clippers. As we're getting better, these teams are too. It's too bad we're not in the East, because I think in the East, minus Cleveland's now new ensemble all-star cast, we could easily have upset a team to get to the finals. But to get through the Clippers, the Thunder, the Rockets, even a wild card like the Mavericks, I mean, who knows? I mean, there's so many variables in the West, and it's going to be tough, but I like our confidence. I like the fact that we're getting these young players who are getting so much experience so quick. I feel like we're getting seasoned. I don't know if it's going to happen this year. I feel like we're missing a key component, which would have been a Kevin Love.
So how far do they need to get, in your opinion, to make it a successful season?
Well, absolutely got to get. Well, look, last year we had to get out of the first round, and that was because the year before we got further, so we went backwards this year somehow. So believe it or not, somehow with 50 plus. I mean, how many wins did we have? 40. What do we have?
52, I think. I think we had 52 wins. Yeah. So I mean, I think we may have gotten more wins, but obviously we didn't make it as far in the playoffs.
Right.
I think it was 51.
51, 52 wins. To me, that's.
What you don't know is Scott just went on 538.crazyboring.com to give us that update. But sorry, man, back to you.
Well, look, either way, I consider the team to be growing, which is the most important thing. Because, again, it could be whether it's 1 or 2 more wins.
Yep.
We came down to take out the Clippers, who could have gone to the finals. Yep. I think they're probably a little more upset and had more expectations than we did last year. But season before last, how deep we took San Antonio, I think, was really what put us on the map even more than last year. And I think we finished that series with 2 wins, if I'm not mistaken, but some really close losses.
Yep.
And to me, that was more of a banner year, obviously because we went farther. So in order for us to have success, I think we got to get not only into the second round, but get more than 2 wins. To me, going back to 2 seasons ago, to be better.
So to capitalize, I gotcha. No, I think that's fair. And I think you hit the nail on the head, man, especially for the long-term fans. This franchise has already moved so far that for those first couple years, we were just fired up to see him in the playoffs, you know? But now that we're kind of used to that, now that the team is spending money, now that they're bringing in legit front office, legit coaches, it's time to put up or shut up. You know, it's tough because Steve Kerr is a brand new coach, but we do need to see the ball moving for it to be successful. Also, I agree with you. It's not, the West is too loaded. You know, I mean, maybe if we get on some kind of magical run, but we can't expect them to win a championship. Here, let me run another quote by you. This one, actually, I found to be really upsetting. Hopefully you can calm me down about it. Here is Steph again, this time on the Doug Gottlieb show about the possibility of him returning home and playing in Charlotte. Here's Steph.
LeBron went home to Cleveland. I know you were actually born in Akron. Some people know that, but you I don't know if you ever go home there. But look, you're like hardcore Carolina Panther fan. Okay, Charlotte's home. Will that ever be is watching what LeBron's doing, or have you guys all talked about? Hey, that'd be cool to do. Maybe I'll do that someday.
I've always had thoughts about, playing at home, what it would be like. My dad played there for 10 years, and, people around the greater Charlotte area, North Carolina, done a lot for my family growing up. So you always think about it. Right now, I feel like, I got 3 years left in my deal, so this won't even be an issue for me for a while. But I love the Bay Area and where we are as a team trying to win a championship, and that's what it's all about. So, of course, everybody dreams about or thinks about what it's going to be like to play at home. Obviously, if that opportunity comes along, that's a different discussion.
Look, we're sitting here talking about our home Warriors because we know what it's like to have our heart be home. So I'm not going to hold that against Steph Curry.
Yep.
You can never blame someone for having their hometown pride and want to go home. I don't see that as him saying he wants to leave the Warriors in any way whatsoever. I see that could have been a really subtle little thing at the Warriors organization, like, hey guys, keep me happy. You just got rid of Mark Jackson. I feel like, it's there's some stuff going on with the organization, and he is the face of the team now, that they got to keep him happy, and that might have been a subconscious, if not conscious way to say that to the organization.
Does it make you a little bit nervous, man? I mean, just hearing it, because I think you're right. But did you like hearing that? Does it make you weirded out a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, I didn't like hearing it. Of course I didn't like hearing it. Yeah. But that's a scary thought, and nothing would surprise me with the Warriors organization. I'm used to having my heart broken over and over again. So you could tell me right now that he's going back to, Charlotte tomorrow, and I'd be like, yep, okay, Warriors curse is still on, I'm not surprised at all. So,
do you think that's why they didn't trade Clay for Love, is because Curry already came out in support of Mark Jackson, and they fire Mark Jackson right in front of Curry's face, and then Clay is his boy, and you have the whole Splash Brothers thing going, and all of a sudden then they trade Clay after Steph comes out and saying don't trade him, and then then you're really looking at a guy who's pissed off and is saying I might go home.
Yeah, man. Honestly, that very well could have all played into it. We don't know what goes on behind those closed doors, but that I would not be surprised if that was the case whatsoever. I would not be surprised at all. And I get it, man. And if that's the case, look, I'm a huge Clay fan. I think his defense is, as him and Draymond Green just play that perimeter D and can lock players up outside that. And he's only getting better, and he's only getting more confident with his shot. And I really think that he is going to become a really, really good player. And him and Steph together are a scary duo and fun to watch. At the end of the day, you just want to have fun. And I'm having fun watching my Warriors right now. And, Kevin Love, and David Lee plays with such emotion. Is it pretty? Not all the time with David Lee. It doesn't have to be pretty, but he puts up 20 and 10, and he's a bully. And, he'll give you some attitude, which I like, which I think we were lacking, some spine, which I think David Lee brought to the table.
Sure. I agree. You said a lot of things. Let me touch on a few of them. One, I don't think Steph was saying that he was leaving by that, but it seemed like he at least left the door open a little bit. As a Warrior fan who's gone through this, I'm like an abused dog, just like you were saying. You know, I hear even the possibility of something negative happening, and I immediately cringe and assume that's exactly what's going to happen, and of course that is. So hopefully that's not true in this instance. And I will say the thing that goes for us, you know, if you look at the timeline, he's got about another 3 years on his deal. By the time he'd have an opportunity to leave, the brand new stadium is going to be well underway. He and Clay will have played together for 5 years at that stage, and hopefully at that point, the Warriors have kind of established themselves as a legit contender, so it's not going to be real easy for that fool to walk away. So hopefully, you know, those are empty words. Now, Clay, everything you said about him, I'm in. I've been super depressed about the love thing up until right now, but a weird thing happened today, man. I woke up, got over the whole, you know, we didn't get love disappointment, finally looked at the roster. We got a damn good team, you know, and there's a lot of things to look forward to, most of which you just touched on. The final thing, and this is my follow-up on David Lee, and I don't feel like there's been a whole lot of focus on it. Here's my worry about D. Lee. You know, like, you look at Clay, they offered a trade, the Warriors said no, the fan base said no, and he's still here. You look at D. Lee, they offered D. Lee, the Warriors are willing to give up on him. All of the fans were like, hell yes, bring in love. How does Lee approach this now? You know what I mean? Like he watched his team, his fan base immediately be willing to get rid of his ass and ship him off to Minnesota. Do you think we got to be worried about his mindset, or is this dude tough enough where we're good?
I do, because I think he's an emotional guy. From what I gathered from him, he seems like a guy that plays with his heart on his sleeve. And when I've the couple of times I've met him, he's an emotional dude, and that's why I like him. So I'm sure, you know, where someone like Clay feels a little more disconnected with emotions, you know, he's kind of a robot, which is a good thing in an athlete too. That's what, you know, that Eli Manning thing. Like Eli Manning plays with zero emotion, and that's why he's got 2 rings, and he's sitting across the table from his more talented brother Peyton, who has 1 ring, because he's a robot. So there's the 2 sides of that personality for an athlete that I think are good and bad. In combination, they're good on a team, you know?
No, that's absolutely right, man. Here's my last quote, and then we'll let you go. Right. This one we don't have the sound on, so you're just going to have to listen to my boring ass read it to you. This is Steve Kerr talking about the fact that Harrison Barnes may start over Iguodala. Quote, Andre started last year, which he probably will again, but there's a lot of options that we have because we've got really good players in Harrison Barnes and Draymond Green. He also added that he would likely use the same lineup as last season, but most of it usually comes down to how the combination fits and how the puzzles fit. Now, you know, he didn't straight out say, look, I'm going to start Barnes or I'm going to start Draymond or Iguodala, but if it was up to you, who do you start at the 3 spot, man? HB, Draymond, or Iguodala?
Oh, God, that's such a tough question. You know, there's so many key elements to all of them. The question would be, how would Iggy play off the bench? I feel like he'd be a good role player off the bench as a veteran. I feel like Harrison Barnes' gameplay suffered tremendously by him coming off the bench last season, because never, probably in his life, has he ever came off the bench, and he didn't really know how to adapt and gel coming in 7 minutes into the game or whatever. So I felt like he wasn't really comfortable all season in that situation. The question is, this year, will he be a little more comfortable? I mean, that first year, he was playing tremendously in the playoffs. He had a 25-point game or something the first round 2 seasons ago in the playoffs when he was starting. So, you know, and then now Draymond Green, who stepped it up, who's hitting clutch threes in, you know, in games in the playoffs. It's
in game 7s.
Yeah, I know. It's incredible, and playing incredible perimeter defense and getting loose balls and rebounds and playing with so much emotion. This is a really good problem to have. So I'm glad that this is what we're talking about instead of something else as Warriors fans. And I don't know the answer to this. I'm just going to go ahead and say that maybe Steve Kerr is playing a little bit of a mind game here with Harrison Barnes to see maybe play a little bit harder so he can fight for that slot. Just because I feel like he's not playing. His body language said a lot too this year. I felt like he wasn't like hustling, which I just show some effort. You know, for me that's everything. Show some heart and effort. It's okay if you up, but try in anything in life. And that's what I think Harrison Barnes was lacking this year, was that spirit. You know, so. We'll see. I'm going to play Switzerland on this one and answer it kind of safe, because I don't know what's going on. There's a bigger picture to all that.
Nicely played, man. I mean, like, you really danced around the entire answer and then never actually gave us one, but I feel like you gave us so much information. I'm not going to give you that was really well done.
That's generally how I feel, because I don't have an answer. I mean, I could get back to you on it, but as far as right now, like, that's That's a really good question, but it's a really good problem to have. I'm happy with that problem. I'm happy with that being our problem right now.
If someone came to me and said, look, I can guarantee you that if you start Harrison Barnes, you'll restart his career, then I'd start him. Even if, he hasn't earned it, I would like to rejump it. If I don't have that guarantee, then it'd be real tough to lose Iguodala's perimeter defense off the starting five of the other squad. So, in my biased and not really well thought out opinion, I'd keep Iguodala in the starting five. Hey, Simon, thank you, man. This was huge fun. I love talking to another hardcore Warrior fan. I'm sure you got better things to do than sit around and talk to us. So we really appreciate it, and hopefully we can do this again.
Hey, man, no, thank you guys for having me on. I love following you guys on Twitter. We're all here together for the Warriors, man. I'm sticking with them for as long as I'm on this planet Earth, and I'm staying with my Warriors. Even if we all fall apart again next year, doesn't matter. I'm sticking with them, and thank you guys for having me on, man. Go Warriors! I live for this, man. It's actually sad. It's sad that I care this much. I wish I didn't. I really wish I didn't care this much, but I really genuinely do.
Well, you can tell the passion comes through the phone. Thanks again, big man.
Thank you guys so much.
We also appreciate you guys listening. It is a damn pleasure to do this, and certainly true to do it this week. Please remember, if you're looking for us on Twitter, we can be found at Warriors Huddle. Our email address remains at warriorshuddle@gmail.com. The website is warriorsworld.net. And also, you can find us on a bunch of podcasting services, including iTunes, where if you wouldn't mind, hop on there, rate us at a 5, and subscribe. We'd really appreciate it. Thanks a lot. We'll see you in a couple weeks.
Yeah, dirty nasty. We're too short. Come on. Yeah. Bitch. Okay, I was at a club. It was almost 2.
Good.